It's not just going and operating a brake press. There's a lot more to it. There's accountants, there's engineers, there's HR people, there's IT. There's a lot of different opportunities in manufacturing that people don't talk about or don't see.
Hey, if you want to attract the next generation to your manufacturing business, you got to be out in your community. You got to be partnering with your local high school. You need to have apprenticeship programs. John Rauner from Behlen, their director of HR, is about to tell us how they're doing that at their organization in this next interview. All right. Well, I think the only appropriate way to jump into this conversation, John, is your teammates were razzing me a bit before we started this conversation. It's like you got to ask the most inappropriate question you can to the HR director. So I'm not going to ask an inappropriate question, but what is a question that you wish more team members would approach you on? Like things that it's like, gosh, I'm a resource for this. Why don't more people ask the HR director this?
I think the question that gets asked the least that I don't hear much about at all is probably around culture and how we do what we do.
Interesting.
Which is, you would not expect that.
Yeah.
That's what I don't get asked about probably the most, and I think a lot of it is just due to people getting busy and we go about our daily activities, but we don't really talk about how do we do things and how do we keep this environment to be the best environment it can be to where people want to come to work every day.
So in like the world according to John, what would be the thing to continue to keep the best culture here at Behlen?
To keep the best culture, we really need to just continue to focus on the people.
Yeah.
So they are your number one asset, and if we really want to be successful, we know we have to keep them around for the long haul. Mm-hmm. And how do we continue to do that in a very competitive environment that we are in? This market, especially here in Nebraska, is heavily competitive.
Right.
Even here in Columbus, we're the highest per capita manufacturing area in the state. Mm-hmm. we got to be creative, and really what our bread and butter has been, for the last 40 years is culture based, where you mm-hmm. focus on the people, make sure that there's solidified communication, and also just make sure that people know they're not a number, they're a human being, and we treat them that way. Our environment's been based on mutual trust and respect for a long time. Mm-hmm. As many manufacturers would probably agree with me. That's over time, society has changed. Even the people that are applying for positions today are different than what they were 20 years ago. So you have to be creative and figure out those ways of how do they want the interaction, how do they want to grow with the company, and try to provide those opportunities for them.
Yeah, and this is a perfect way to start this part of the discussion, because we are going to be talking about people, particularly the partnerships you create and nurture to get more people into your company. And I'll start off with a fun question. I'm gonna guess you can't find enough welders in this day and age. I've yet to go to a facility that can find enough welders.
Right.
So, maybe a good concrete example to start with is, your teammate Mick, you said it built this up, but like East Butler High School, for mm-hmm. example. What are you doing to partner with a group like that to start solving some of those challenges?
Absolutely. So it's really just being open-minded to the opportunities that present themselves. So East Butler reached out to us directly. They were trying to build their program, and they reached out to us very simply and said, we would like to invest in this program, but we need support from manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And so they asked us for, it was a small donation, and helped to purchase a welder for them, or purchase some welders for them. And in turn, we would help explain the opportunities that were here, do some classroom visits, and obviously more than likely do some tours. Mm-hmm. And that was a no-brainer for us. Yeah. It's an easy relationship to build. They're not far away. We can build that relationship very easily. Yeah. So it's little things like that go a long way in a community like this. And the welding pipeline is not getting any easier.
Right.
It's getting more difficult every day. And just this year alone, that's what made us actually do a little bit more with Central Community College as well. Just knowing mm-hmm. that it's not getting easier. We hoped it would, but it's really not getting easier. And even with the students going into it today, they don't necessarily know that different places that you work is different types of welding. Mm-hmm. So it's being able to show those opportunities ahead of time for those students, and get high schoolers in here. I mean, I'm open to getting junior high students in here and younger, just so they understand what those opportunities are.
Yeah, so to be clear, it's not just an investment in the equipment, but it's really an investment in a program that gets them exposed to welding, gets them exposed to your company, all of the above.
All the above.
Well, let's talk about, you mentioned Central Community College as well, and that they have an apprenticeship program that you're very involved in. So explain that program as well.
So we've become involved with Central Community College through their apprenticeship program that they offer through the college. Essentially, it allows people going to CCC to have a more structured approach. Rather than have your traditional approach or even your non-traditional approach, they have a structured program in place. So we actually have the ability here as the employer that they get to go to class, they get to come work, so they're getting all that at the same time. But then on top of it, what we get to do is we get to evaluate those students and be able to be that person that checks off the list of this is what they're capable of. So that way they can go back and report back to the school of how they're doing to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
But they're growing a skill set, we're filling a need that we need, and at the end of the day, it provides for that structure, and it's just a little bit more. It's just a little bit more work based, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
And it's going to help us out in the future. We just signed up. We just signed up here this year.
Yeah.
So
brand new.
Brand new.
Okay.
We initially just didn't have a. We were trying to rely on our own resources to do that, and we knew we needed some assistance.
Yeah. No, I mean that's why we're talking about all these partnerships, because no company can accomplish this alone. And let's be honest, I think many people default think it's like, oh, well, there are a lot of resources like if you're in an urban area, but what do you do when you're in central Nebraska, for example? You've already given 2 examples. Another one, we talked apprenticeships, we talked about welding partnerships with the high school. Skills USA as well is another area that you're able to get involved with high school students and college students, and that teaches, skills like drafting and interviewing and so on and so on. How would you describe that program a bit more? Because I'm sure I'm only scratching the surface on this.
So that program, it's a wonderful program because it's very broad. There are so many different activities that they get to participate in. Anything from robotics to to drafting, all those great things. But interviewing is obviously the part that I've participated in as an HR person. But when you're focusing on that technical skill set, it's invaluable. You got to be able to have people that are interested in those things. They can be a part of this program right from day one, build that interest, and then we'd be able to maybe have a little bit better opportunity to get them in the future going into a manufacturing type environment, to where maybe that wasn't something that they had planned on initially. And we try to do everything we can, whether it's sponsoring events, whether it's going and, I myself have gone to Grand Island, participated in the interview, be part of the panel, doing anything we can to get in front of those students because they are the future. They are the ones doing the work in high school and in college to really get us to that next level. Those are going to be the ones that we rely on, that technical expertise.
So this has been realistically a sizable list of activities you're doing to get involved in the community, to reach out to where the next generation of talent is. What actionable advice would you share to simplify this a bit for other manufacturers out there that are looking for a way to get started or take their recruiting and community involvement game to the next level? What would be your advice?
I would say the first place to start, if you don't have those relationships with the local schools, that's going to be a big part of it. We've tried to take a lot of that knowledge that we've learned from partnering with the high schools locally and the surrounding communities to figure out how we can support them, because they're going to be the ones that can help us determine that. We're not in the schools every day to determine really where they're at. And what do you know? We've learned that we can help with not a lot of work on our part. We can help them and develop that relationship. Another big one that we don't talk about a whole lot is through our chamber here in Columbus. So we have a Drive for 5 program where we partner with the chamber to get the resumes from local schools and things like that. But what that has opened up for us is just different opportunities to learn about where we can do better. Something that we really focused on was getting into the schools locally, not just through technical, but for kids in general to learn about manufacturing, to know that it's not just going and operating a brake press.
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it. There's accountants, there's engineers, there's HR people, there's IT. There's a lot of different opportunities in manufacturing that people don't talk about or don't see. And a lot of that has helped us build that, kind of forge that relationship a little bit. So I think if you start with your local schools, but also be able to partner with your chamber, I think that will go a long way.
Last question. Are you seeing a new energy or a resurging energy around manufacturing
I am.
in central Nebraska?
I am. I think people are more excited now than they ever have been because we're being more innovative. You know, nobody is being able to continue with the status quo and stick around. You have to be more creative and innovative. We're seeing it here too. You know, Behlen is more known as being a steady employer. We didn't necessarily, we weren't known for necessarily coming up with the new technology every 5 years.
Yeah.
But now we are, and you're starting to see there's a lot more energy around manufacturing than there has been, and you're seeing it at the state level too. That we're starting to see more support for manufacturing, and it's a great thing to see.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the energy you're bringing to manufacturing. We're going to make sure more folks within their manufacturing organizations have the culture discussion with their HR leaders. So, John, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the show.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.